On today's show, we're talking to Brendan Hunt. Brendan is an actor, musician, and artist, as well as an independent researcher and investigative journalist in the alternative media. His website is brendanhunt.com, and his YouTube channel is X-Ray Ultra. Brendan's been doing some really great investigative journalism on Sandy Hook, and that's what caught our eye, and so we're eager to have him on the show. So please welcome Brendan Hunt. Hi, Brendan.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Brendan, how are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Good. So, yeah, it's great. It's great. So you have a 2-hour documentary on Sandy Hook and a 3-hour documentary on the Illuminati. So, I mean, obviously you've been doing a lot of research on these subjects, and I'm just curious as to why did you decide to start doing this research and go down the rabbit hole,
well,
so to speak?
I guess it's something that I've been interested in for a while, ever since, I guess, 2004 or so, when I started coming across the Alex Jones videos and things like that. People were selling them on the street corners, and I just picked one up, and I saw this Bohemian Grove stuff, and I was like, oh, man, I can't believe nobody knows about this. And then I guess I researched it for a number of years, like 5 or 6 years or something like that. And then back in 2011, I started to do something about it. I started making a blog spot kind of thing, posting news articles. Then I got involved with the Occupy movement and the Liberty movement to a little extent. And then I just made this video about Sandy Hook, which was another blatant false flag. And it's just, I think it's just time that we start calling people out on this whole thing. And that's what I think the whole Occupy movement and Liberty movement is all about, just raising awareness and saying, no, we're not going to, we're more informed now. We have things like the Internet. And we're going to actually fight back with our own information.
Wow, that's really inspiring to know that a video on the corner got you started, because I feel like a lot of people, when they have awakening, so to speak, it's because of some traumatic event. That causes them to, to look into deeper things. But that's great. I mean, knowing that does really work for some people, just standing out and giving them information, and people are willing to look into it,
Sure. I mean, there are also other, traumatic ties that I guess not really traumatic, I guess, for me, more traumatic for other people that I was associated with, but, to 9/11, let's say, because I was in New York City at the time, and I was actually with somebody who had a family member who was a victim that day, and those kind of moments, the Sandy Hook thing is close by to me, so those kinds of things actually bring it home, and it's like this is happening in my backyard almost. There was a guy who's a National Guardsman who was just shot by the NYPD on the highway. Near my house on the Grand Central Parkway, and this stuff is happening right around me. The NYPD is just really terrorizing people. Forrest Whitaker came out because the NYPD basically stopped frisked him, which is unconstitutional, and because this deli owner accused him of stealing something. And, Forrest Whitaker is an actor.
Right. Yeah, he's an amazing actor. He's an Oscar-nominated actor. He's a
very well-known guy,
Yeah. Like he stole a loaf of bread or some crap. We're going to, what the hell?
Yeah, and you're not allowed to just come up to some guy with no real credible evidence and just start, going through his pockets, rummaging around, and
right.
It's just really, it's getting out of control a little bit. So that's why I also think that there's been more of an outcry, during the Bush years and everything, they started to come out with, the Patriot Act and all that stuff, and then everybody voted for Obama thinking we were going to, turn things around, and when it didn't happen, we're like, oh, okay, now it's really on,
Yeah, then you get it, and you realize that, okay, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
This guy, that guy, Coke, Pepsi, whatever. It's all kind of...
totally.
Yeah.
Are you from New York? Are you from...
Me? Yeah.
Okay, are you living in New York right now? You're on the East Coast right now?
Yeah, I guess I lived in Brooklyn for the first 2 or 3 years of my life, and then I moved out to Queens, and I've lived here pretty much ever since. I lived in the city when I was in college, and then in 2011 I was living in Harlem for a little while, and then I was living in a park for a little while, and with the Occupy movement, not because I was totally homeless or anything. But,
okay, I was like, hey, this artist.
Well, it happened.
Yeah.
But, I've kind of just been in the New York area a lot. I've actually never been outside the country or anything like that.
Oh, wow. So, Brendan, when I was looking at your website, I was because obviously I found you through your Sandy Hook investigation, but I noticed you had a book on there about the death of Curt Cobain, and I'm just kind of curious because I love Nirvana. I was a big fan back in the 90s, and yeah, I'm that girl. But I wanted to just ask you about that because just out of my own curiosity, right before we jump into Sandy Hook. So what is the book about, and what was the research that you found?
Oh, well, this was part of the stuff that I was doing in 2011 before I got, all into the Occupy activism kind of thing. I was spending a lot of time on the computer with this blogspot thing that I was making. That was when I did the Illuminati research that I made that video about. That was actually research I did in 2011. I just, kind of read it to the camera. So I was doing research on all these subjects, and one thing that I was really interested in was the Curt Cobain thing, because I had heard about it, but I wanted to prove it for myself whether it was true or not. And I wanted to get the real information. And I came across this guy, Tom Grant, who was the private investigator that Courtney Love hired to find Curt Cobain when he was missing right before he was found in this greenhouse having apparently committed suicide.
Right.
So Tom Grant does this whole investigation, and then he writes a book that actually accuses Courtney Love of maybe conspiring with this person who worked for the Cobains named Michael Callie DeWitt. And he accuses Michael Callie DeWitt of actually carrying out this murder on Curt Cobain. So I thought this whole thing was really interesting, especially because this guy wasn't just some random guy on the internet. He was somebody who was closely associated with the Cobains. He was hired by Courtney Love. And then I started to get wrapped up into this whole thing. There was somebody else on the internet who did a lot of research into the subject. I think her name is Frances Barnett, or that's the pseudonym that she wrote under. I think her real name is Sue something. And so I got into her research, and she was quoting things from old magazines from the 90s that are really hard to get anymore. So I was like, oh, this is great information. Nobody really knows this. So I kind of combined the two. I combined Tom Grant's information with this other person on the internet's information, and I came out with this book, which I sort of compiled. I didn't really write it. It's the words of other people. I kind of just changed the words around, switched around the information a little bit to make it into a concise sort of book that you can read, even as an e-book on something. So I just released it on the internet for free because I thought it was something that everybody should be aware of, and I think it kind of points to some of the taboo subjects that are out there, and kind of how the media can manipulate what other people think and kind of hide the real facts of a situation.
So you think that that there was a conspiracy to murder him for money, or is it somehow, because as you know, having done research about the Illuminati, there's also a tie into the music industry. Is there any kind of that? Was there anything like that going on, or was it just
not
kind
really,
of?
For my research, it was more of a fact of just the money aspect for Courtney Love, because they were. He wanted to get a divorce. He was talking about they had a prenuptial agreement and everything, so if they got a divorce, she would be out of luck. He'd probably get custody of their child, and he'd be, the big rock star. She wouldn't really have that momentum to kind of, ride on anymore.
Right.
And so by having him killed, it would. I'm trying to word because I don't want to go right out accusing her or anything like that.
Right.
But if she was to have him killed, she would be able to get that money from all the the $50 million from the record sales and things like that, all the rights to the music, the custody of the child, the houses, everything.
Wow.
So there's a big difference, and I think that was probably the motivation behind it. And I think when you look at the statements of Curt Cobain's friends and Curt Cobain himself prior to his death, you'll see that he was actually off heroin, that he was on more optimistic level, creating new music. And so I haven't really gotten too much feedback about that, and I was even thinking of doing a video on it. So I'm wondering what people think about it. So if anybody wants to email me, I'm at xrayultra@gmail.com. So hit me up.
All right.
Cool. Just wait, a little bit, one more, just a couple of questions before we get into Sunday, because I know Sunday is going to take up a lot of time. I just had another one. So just going back to you, like your awakening and you know, wanting to know the truth. Would you consider yourself a truther? Do you think that that's an appropriate word to describe who you are or what you stand for?
Yeah, I mean, some people don't really like truther or conspiracy theorists in those terms, but I don't really mind them because I kind of think that they've gotten a bad rap, those terms.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would consider myself a truther, part of the truth movement, or 9/11 truth, things like that. And conspiracy theories, you know, even the official story that they try to tell about the 9/11 thing is a conspiracy theory. So, you know, either way, you're probably a conspiracy theorist. So I don't really find, you know, that's too bad, you know.
What percentage of your family and friends would you say are awake? Are you or so to speak? Are you still trying to wake up the ones that aren't awake?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to wake up the ones that aren't awake, but I'd say that like it's like 90%, you know, 99% of my social circle, my immediate social circle, don't really agree with me or see eye to eye on some of the things that I'm talking about. But that's why I found so many friends in things like the Occupy and Liberty and you know, other activist movements, because those people are more engaged in political ideas and, you know, what's going on in the world. They're more interested in news and not so much the bread and circus kind of, you know, sports kind of stuff.
Right.
So,
definitely. It can be lonely at times, you know. I
yeah.
feel definitely, like, thank God for the internet. I mean, April and I have each other, and then we've actually grown a circle of friends and people through our talk show that we've met, and through her involvement in the autism community, you know. But yeah, it gets really frustrating. Like, I have fights with my family about Obama and stuff, and you know, and other things. It's very frustrating at times. So.
Yeah, it's too bad because, like, I wish I could, you know, even engage some people on the subject, but sometimes nobody really even wants to talk about it. So, you know, that can be personally frustrating for me. Like when I feel like I'm being shut down. You know, like I want to talk about something, but I can't really. It's taboo. And I hope that we can all just find a way to have a less, you know, aggressive way of talking about some of these subjects, like politics and things like that really need to be discussed by more people, you know?
Yeah, and you're an actor, though. I'm just curious, how do you, you know, I pursued acting right now, but now I'm screenwriting and stuff, and I still have to go in social circles, especially a lot of people in California, they're like really pro-Obama, and I'm not. And I'm just curious, as an actor, how do you separate your political views from your career, or do you find yourself having to be quiet, or you just, like, how do you deal with that when you're you know, as far as your career and your political views?
Well, sure. I mean, I started on a acting or a theater career when I was younger, and I didn't really, you know anything about what was like going on a geopolitical scale and military-industrial complexes and all that kind of stuff. And just like being on stage and like playing different characters and things like that. And so that's why I got into the entertainment industry, if you can call it that, or what I'm doing anymore. And I guess at a certain point in college, that's when I started realizing certain things were going on, and I got less interested in doing jobs like commercials.
Yeah, definitely.
I almost became disillusioned with that whole aspect of, like, you know, going to Hollywood. And you know, there was a time when I graduated college and I wanted to go out there and like try and just like drive out there on the highway and be like, yeah, I'm going to Hollywood, I'm going to make my fortune and all that stuff. But
definitely.
Yeah, then like reality hits, you know, and then I'm like, oh, I got to, you know, pay certain bills and things like that.
Well, I know about the guilt thing too, because you know, I actually am a theater major too. I went to school in San Francisco, and I did a lot of theater, and I did one of my first paying jobs was with a theater company, and I love it, and I think it's so frustrating because I feel like the acting industry, the whole entertainment industry is very convoluted, and people don't know like acting history. They don't know like the original actors were really poor, and they were outcast because they were the people that were like standing up for social equality and trying to figure out like the human psyche and things and how we work, and and I think it's a beautiful art form because to me, I think it brings you really close to humanity, because you try and put yourself in other people's shoes and situations, but because of the celebrity factor now, it's just so convoluted and, just.
I mean, well, like the mainstream media can sort of pervert all art forms, whether it's acting in movies or music, the music industry, or whether it's, just regular paintings and things like that, comic books and whatnot. And it's just a shame because it's something that I wanted to do ever since I was a little kid, but I feel like the things that I wanted to do with acting are sort of impossible in the environment that's sort of around us. And it's just a shame that, we don't have more of a refined culture and whatnot.
Yeah, well, there's indie film. I think there's hope in that movement. I like indie.
Yeah, there's just no money in it.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's still. I mean, if you're really dying to act, that's where I'm turning my aspirations to because I went to Sundance like 2 years ago, and I was really, really inspired because I felt like I just ran across people and I saw a lot of good movies from all over the world, and it just made me realize I can still do this and be a part of this creative process. But I didn't have to be a part of the machine, and I understand the whole thing about the guilt because I look at commercials now and I see my friends in commercials and stuff, and I don't judge them. I'm not angry at them or jealous or anything like that, but I'm just like, how can I do a commercial for Coke, knowing what they're involved in, and not feel bad about it, or a pharmaceutical commercial, which pays really well, by the way. Coke and pay like the best.
Yeah, they've got the deep pockets.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, if you really go deep into it, I don't think with good conscience I can really ever audition for any commercials anymore, things like that, And like I said, no judgment on other people, just me personally, I just.
Yeah, I mean, well, like I'm sort of a hypocrite because earlier today I had a Coke, I had a can of Coke, But I'm trying to like eliminate those kind of things from my life, and one of these little signs that I saw at one of these Occupy rallies when they first started was a Gandhi quote that said like, "Be the change you want to see in the world," or something like that. And that's almost the kind of mantra that I'm sort of trying to go with now, and slowly kind of eliminating things like McDonald's from my life and stuff. I was a big McDonald's fiend for years.
My God, McDonald's is so good, but it's so
solid menu.
Like fat. It's but food.
Yeah, I mean, at least they stopped using that meat paste they were using.
The pink slime or something?
Yeah.
Were they using that? Oh, dear.
Yeah. But for years we were eating that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
God.
Yeah, no, that was where you went.
Yeah.
When my parents took me, if you got good grades, you got to go.
Yeah, exactly. I went there after basketball games. It was like total, the opposite of what you do.
Right. Yeah. So getting into Sandy Hook, let's talk about, obviously the official story that they've been putting out on the media is just kind of like all over the place. It's really hard to follow, which I think is part of the disinformation campaign. But what are some of the, to you, when you were following it, what were some of the big, like, bullet point red flags that started getting you to question it?
Well, I guess the first thing that struck me was the guy running away from police into the woods, and then when I was looking up more things, I found some other researchers who talked about this Masonic Lodge that's right in back of Sandy Hook, and that's right where this camouflage man was running, who was caught by police in the woods.
Yeah.
So that kind of got me on this whole Masonic kind of ties into Gene Rosen, if you know who he is, with the kids in the firehouse and everything like that. I guess you're familiar with the whole Sandy Hook thing. But this guy, Gene Rosen, found these kids on his lawn with a school bus driver and another man who was apparently talking aggressively to them. And then Gene Rosen gave like 10 or 15 interviews to the media, and they're all over the place with contradictory information. And now it's come out with this helicopter footage that they found where you can actually see Gene Rosen walking around the firehouse at the time that he's saying that he was with these kids in his house. So he has more contradictory information there. And so I'm actually going to Sandy Hook in a couple of days with a friend. And we're going to try and, like, get actual footage of the firehouse to, like, get as close to the school as we can, and try and follow up with some of the people in the area who might have seen some things going on, and try and get some shots of the Masonic Lodge that's right next to Sandy Hook. And, yeah, we're going to see. So if you have any suggestions about that, feel free to hit me up, or if you guys have any suggestions, because we're just going there and, like, taking pictures of the elementary school area, like the area around the school, but we were wondering if we could maybe go to the county court or something and look up records of people and things like that. So I don't know. What do you think?
Be careful, first of all.
Yeah, be careful.
Yeah, that's why I'm going with another person. I'm like,
document, where you're going to be. I'm thinking if there's like a lot, seriously, because, there's so many inconsistencies, and obviously we know, about the Illuminati, about all the stuff they're involved in. This could be potentially, I would say, very dangerous. You have balls. I wouldn't do that.
Well, yeah,
I'm like scared. I consider myself a gutsy person in some respects, but that's just one thing. Like, I'm scared.
I'm just hoping that I'm like a crazy conspiracy theorist too, and there's nothing to worry about. So that's what I'm going with.
There was did you read about this was on the website of the professor who did the timeline, and he got we can talk about that in a minute, but he Anderson Cooper and those people were giving him crap, and the memory hole, I think, was the blog. Anyway, he has an article up there of a couple from Canada that went to Sandy Hook after the event took place. Have either one of you guys heard about this?
Yeah, I saw that. They got pictures of the Masonic Lodge that's right there. I saw that little blog that they had up. They had a lot of great pictures on there.
Yeah, and then one thing they also found, which I just learned about, was that there was a pipeline that was put in back in 2008 or something like that, and so a lot of the gas company that put in the pipeline had actually bought a lot of the property that had been supposedly owned by the victims.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so this is, I'll send you the article on this because somebody just sent that to me recently, and I was like, that's interesting. So there's obviously, so it's possible that there's nobody even living there.
Yeah.
So anyway.
It's possible with this,
right.
What parts are staged, what parts are real, because some parts I get the feeling that somebody died,
right.
Because, like, some of these people seem have very real emotions, but then other parts are just blatantly false, and it's really confusing, And the media's not questioning this stuff. It's just so I guess that's why we got to do our work.
Right, they're not questioning it, and they're attacking anybody who does. I mean, it's kind of like they're really coming after us, and even I think it was the chief of the police in Sandy Hook was saying that anybody who questioned it was going to be detained. They were going to be. I don't think he used the word arrested, but he did say that they would be questioned and detained or something like that.
That's that's our job to question things. That's very creepy.
Yeah, like saying misinformation, I think was the term. Anybody who posts misinformation online, it's like who's determining what's the information and what's misinformation,
Right.
Yeah.
He's saying anything coming from these microphones is the absolute gospel truth. It's like, no, we have to question things. That's our job as journalists, or our job as civilians, even.
Yeah,
definitely. I'm just curious. What do you think about they're saying that maybe some of the victims' families were are actors, as an actor too. What do you think about that? Because I know there's like what's that video of Bobby? No, what's his name? The blonde guy that's like
Robbie Parker.
Robbie Parker.
Yeah. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that looks like a person getting into character.
Yeah.
And has been an actor for a while,
Yeah, definitely.
And also, when you look at a guy like Gene Rosen, the way that his emotions go up and down in these interviews, where sometimes it seems like he's getting more and more emotional as he does these interviews, when you'd think after the initial event, that's when he'd be the most emotional.
Right.
You know, it's just odd things like that. And then you have people coming out saying that this family, the Phelps family, is actually this family, and you know, they're a CIA family that has all these connections on Facebook. I haven't really gotten into that whole thing with the whole crisis actor thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I've looked at some of these pictures. Some of them look pretty close in identity, but then other ones look totally bogus, you know. So I don't even know what to make of some of these things. So I try to, you know, not concentrate on that part too much. But I look at the things that are obvious, which are like Gene Rosen, Robbie Parker, and some of the reactions of the parents and teachers and family members just seem odd to me and to a lot of other people, I think.
And what did you think about the coroner, Dr.?
Oh, God, yeah. Dr. Carver?
Yeah, another one of these people, and it's almost like a rogues gallery of, like, characters that we have.
Yeah.
Just acting very odd, you know?
It's like Clue.
And all of them need to be it's almost like you need to create a profile on each of them and say, like, okay, what exactly are they saying here? What are the facts that they're giving here? And you have to kind of cross-reference it. That's the only way that people can make sense of it, and that's what like thinking people are doing, because they're looking at people with their brains on are looking at this information and saying, wait, this doesn't make sense with this, and it doesn't make sense with this. So that's why people are becoming their own independent journalists, I think, because you're having a surge. It's almost like a movement itself, because people are like, no, the media just is not making sense anymore, and we have the tools necessary to check on that.
Right.
Yeah. Have you? What do you think about the? Did you see the Anderson Cooper interview about Sandy Hook and how he basically just talked about internet conspiracy theorists, and how we're basically a threat and a danger?
Yeah.
I mean, that was pretty scary. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the media, the mainstream media, as far as I'm concerned, if there is a cover-up or a conspiracy of any kind, they're complicit in it just because of the way they're acting and because they're covering up certain information. Like this Anderson Cooper thing, you can tell it's a hit piece because he only concentrates on the most easily debunked things, like the whole crisis actor thing. So bring on some people who, like, you know, come on his show and say, I have a family member who was killed here, or this and that. And, you know, he can debunk that pretty easily. But he's not concentrating on, let's say, the camouflage man who's getting chased into the woods. Like, what about that, Anderson Cooper? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah.
And, you know, and I kind of wish that professor who wrote the Memory Hole blog thing, I almost wish he had gone on the show just to have a voice on our side of the argument.
I'm about that too, because I've noticed Anderson Cooper. He just sabotages people. He just brings them on and doesn't really, you know. I don't know even if you were to come on though, if he would have been given a fair chance, because he basically just brings people on and yells at them, and makes them, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like a Sean Hannity kind of thing, like just the lefty side.
Yeah,
right. It's just he likes to set people up, and I mean, I don't know what Anderson Cooper's deal is. I know he used to work for the CIA. I don't know how deep that goes, but I do know, and I think you talked a little bit about this too, Brendan, that CNN has been in the past known to stage basically like have like green screens and things behind them to pretend like they're in front of in the Iraq War, for example. They did a lot of that during the First War, the Persian Gulf War, and things like that. And so I read recently that they don't even have investigative journalists, and they don't even like have an investigative journalist department anymore. They just don't even bother.
Well, a lot of it's almost like outsourcing, the way that we outsource jobs to India or China or something like that. They just outsource it to foreign correspondents that work for other news agencies, so they don't really need to have a worldwide global network of CNN reporters. They even have, like, you know, eye reporters, like just civilians and stuff like that, who send in their own little eye reports.
Yeah, they don't, right. I mean, CNN, I like to call them certainly not news. It's just kind of a joke. I mean, it's so, and I think, are you familiar with Amber Lyons? Did you hear about her story?
Sure. Yeah.
So she said, essentially, they just were feeding them information straight from the administrative offices. Obama and Bush did the same thing, and then just telling them what they can and cannot report on. So it's just, I mean, I don't know, but
propaganda, you know,
it's more than propaganda. It's like programming.
Yeah.
There are so many subjects out there. It's like Sandy Hook was followed by, Christopher Dorner and the whole cabin fight in the middle of the State of the Union, the Pope resigning, the meteors coming down, and it's like all this kind of like crazy news stories coming out, and that I think deserves investigation too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's it's like when you're continuously lied to. It's like you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend that consistently cheats on you. You find out they've been cheating on you. Do you keep believing them? Do you still listen to everything that they say? No, It's just, I'm over it. Even before all the inconsistencies came out with the Sandy Hook, I was like, this is false flag. I'm just over it. I was just over it because it's just especially when something gets so much press,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can smell it when they do one of these things. Even the Christopher Dorner thing, something smelled fishy about that whole thing with the LAPD shooting up all these innocent people. That 71-year-old woman and her daughter who were delivering newspapers.
Right.
And why were they trying to kill this guy so hard? And the whole thing with the drones, how this guy from Customs and Border said that they were going to use drones to find this guy, and then later came out and said, no, I didn't say that. I think his name was Ralph DeCio or something.
Uh-huh.
And then Drone and Dorner and all this crazy stuff that you can really get to if you follow down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I know, it's true. And then it almost is sort of, and then people who are not, quote, awake, once you start saying these things, they go, oh, you say that about everything. Then it's just not everything, but
not everything is a conspiracy, Verstine. That's what I say.
But I just think it's hard that everything is a conspiracy. It's just, or it at least deserves
investigation, questioning.
And it isn't everything is a conspiracy. It's just some things are obviously engineered. It's not every shooting that occurs in the United States is a false flag, but this one, because there are just so many red flags up, you can tell that some parts are engineered. And there's this whole thing about cognitive dissonance, and people don't really want to admit that there's some kind of nefarious government out there that's trying to control things. And it's a hard thing to even grasp for me. So I can understand why, there's such a resistance to that idea.
Yeah, definitely. And when you first heard about the Sandy Hook thing, what was your initial reaction? Did you like Verstine said, did you automatically think false flag, or were you kind of following the story and letting that unfold? So what was
I kind of thought it even with 9/11, 9/11 I believed for years that was the original thing. And with Sandy Hook, for a few days, I was I guess it sounds pretty weird. It's a pretty weird story. It sounds a little bit like the Batman thing, but I didn't start looking into it until I heard some of these things through Facebook. Some of my friends were posting these things about a guy running into the woods away from the police and things like that. And I got invited to some of these Facebook discussion groups about the subject. And so that's when I started looking it and saying, oh, there's another one. Here we go again, another one of these.
Yeah, and when one of the things that struck me, because I have an autistic child, and I thought when they said that the lone gunman was Adam Lanza, who had a diagnosis of autism, I went, "Ooh, that sounds like a lie."
Yeah, because I've also worked with kids, so we were talking about that too. We were talking about the motor skills and how they're very poor in autistic children, and how that's just impossible. Yeah,
it just didn't sound like he was capable of it, because what they were saying he did, and how he was carrying all these weapons and driving a car to another state and all. I just went, that just really is very fishy. So, and I think that the lone gunman is essentially a myth that our society has created. I mean, and we can find that in a lot of these false flag events. So what are your thoughts on that, Brendan? What did you think about the lone gunman theory, and not just in this shooting, but in general as a part of mythology of our culture?
Yeah, I mean, well, as far as the autism thing, one of my friends from high school works with autistic children, and she took a look at it, and she's not a conspiracy theorist by any means, but this story didn't make sense to her either. And then this Newton B. article that came out about the person who was running away into the woods from the police, who was apparently the camouflage man,
right.
and it named him as the SWAT team officer and everything. In that same article, it said that Adam Lanza wasn't wearing any body armor, which totally contradicts what we've heard in most news outlets, that he was wearing body armor.
Right.
And, you know, I think that as far as the lone gunman thing is concerned, of course, yeah, you look back throughout the 60s with JFK, Martin Luther King. I found out recently the United States government was found guilty of killing Martin Luther King in a 1999 civil trial.
What? Big wow.
That's a thing that I just did. I had to check it online. It's like a real thing. You can go Google that.
No, I believe you, but I'm like, nothing surprises me anymore.
Well, it's not surprising,
you know what I mean?
but it's surprising that they actually are being caught doing it. 'Cause civil, you can add evidence in a civil case that you can't necessarily add in a criminal case. You can add circumstantial evidence and things like that. So you can prove things sometimes civilly that you can't prove criminally. So,
but you know what? Was it like, so there was more than one gunman, or do you know what is
with the Martin Luther King thing?
Yeah.
They just cleared the person. I didn't get into all the details. I just know that they cleared the person that was originally accused of it.
Wow.
And they implicated the United States government in Martin Luther King's death. I just found out this information, so that's something that I have to look into now too.
Yeah.
That's huge, and that should be really mainstream news. But I never heard of that.
Exactly.
But obviously, Kim Kardashian's pregnancy is way much more.
Oh my gosh! I mean, wow! I had no idea. I mean, obviously, we think we know. I don't know anybody who believes the official JFK assassination story, but you know, a lot of these things were happening just on top of each other, and people were starting to think the world was going crazy, I guess. But there it is, the lone gunman.
I mean, I've even heard that, like, this is kind of not really a lone gunman thing, but I've even heard people talking about JFK Jr., how his death was may have been engineered in some way. Because he was supposed to have died in that plane crash and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a little documentary out there. It's by the same guy who did one called JFK 2 or Dark Legacy, I think it's called, and it's about JFK Jr. And it's pretty good. It actually implicates the Bush family. The Bushes are all tied up in the Kennedy affair and everything.
Sure.
It's very fascinating. So I talked about this on another podcast show. There's this book called Family of Secrets by Russ Baker that was really, really informative when it comes to the Bushes, how they're connected to secret societies, all of the defense contractors and weapons manufacturers in the United States, as well as the whole Kennedy conspiracy and everything like that. So I highly recommend that book for anybody who wants to do some research on their own, or maybe write a book of their own, something like that.
Yeah. No, it's important because we talk about all these things that happen historically because it's important to understand because it just keeps repeating. It's pretty much the same script. The JFK assassination and the 9/11 is pretty much Operation Northwoods, or the Hegelian dialectic, like problem, reaction, solution, and that's what we saw, coming out of Sandy Hook. And also, one thing that I've noticed, Brendan, I don't know if you've kind of picked up on this, but in the truth movement, there's been a lot of division over why this happened or how it happened. A lot of people thinking it's a complete outright hoax. Some people are calling it a satanic ritual. I mean, saying this is so. What are your thoughts on that, and what do you think? Like, how important do you think that aspect is, or should we just focus on?
It's good to, investigate that, just like the line of questioning.
Right.
But me personally, as far as trying to prove the case to somebody, if I was trying to explain to somebody who had no knowledge of 9/11, I wouldn't start out with this is a satanic ritual or something like that. Even if I believe that or not, regardless. Like, it's just something that I don't really concentrate on as an investigative journalist. As a person who looks up, crazy videos on YouTube at night, like, yeah, maybe I might click on a video like that and check it out or something and see where that goes. But, you know, I guess it's something, I concentrate more on the actual physics of the thing, because that's the hard proof, that's the evidence,
right.
And that's the stuff that we really need to document and keep, because in time that's what's going to help us prove our case in real, you know, courts of law or, you know, real scientific investigations. If we can, you know, like hang on to the original Zapruder film footage, like that's something I wonder about sometimes too. Like the original Zapruder film, does anybody have real access to that, or like the original footage of us landing on the moon? Like, is that readily available to us? Can we get that on YouTube? I don't think so. I mean, the original film I think you can get, but the footage of us like landing on the moon, let's say, or something like that, in the information age, that should be more available to us, I think.
Definitely. You know? Do you think that we'll ever get to the bottom of Sandy Hook? And do you think that's, I mean, why isn't so, it seems like also you have a, I mean, we talked about like your curiosity, but you, about the situation, but you also just seem to have a personal connection to it. So why is it so important for you to get to the bottom of what really happened instead of looking at the big picture?
Yeah, I mean, well, once it actually happened on my birthday.
What?
December 14th is my birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So that was kind of shocking itself, you know. And so I was kind of bummed out about that, you know, like about like 27 children being like slaughtered, you know, and so that got me kind of thinking about the story a little bit too. And you know, I kind of avoided it for a couple of days, but then I started finding out more information about it, and it became something I got invested in, you know. And it's like if 27 kids did die, then, you know, somebody should be asking some certain questions, because I'm not totally convinced that like everybody was an actor or something. Like maybe some of these kids really got shot here, you know, and if the media and the authorities aren't asking the right questions, then we have to, you know. It's the same thing, the reason why I got started on 9/11 research. It was like this kid that I know, his mother was a victim in the 9/11 attack, and so it's like the authorities, the people in our government aren't asking the right questions. Somebody has to, and like, you know, it's almost like an obligation. I think other people in the country feel that as far as like a kind of like nationalism to the country, like they see that America is on a downward spiral almost the last decade with all these wars that we're getting involved in, and so people have an investment in these things. You know, it's like they see that something's going on that's not being talked about in the mainstream media, and you know, there's a growing desire to talk about these issues and to make them not such a taboo subject anymore.
Oh, wow. I'm just curious, because we talked a little bit in the beginning of the interview about how it could be kind of lonely when you kind of wake up and you realize that, you know, you're living in a different paradigm than the one that you've been taught, than the one that what you think you're living in. I guess that's a good way to put it. And I'm just curious, do you ever, I'm sure you do, but well, maybe you don't, I don't know. Do you ever have down days? And if you do, you know, what do you do about it? And where do you feel it's or how do you, you know, keep going, you know?
Well, I'm glad that I found a few more people through just like my. It's funny because like when you go searching for the truth, you also find people who are interested in the same type of subjects. You know, I didn't know anybody else who was interested in looking at conspiracies and whatnot. But then when I started putting some videos out there and I started going to like some activism things and some rallies, I met people who did want to do something about this stuff and who did think about the same subjects I did and had similar, you know, worldviews and wanted to engage in, you know, projects, collaborative projects to help fight what they saw was going on too. So that helps a lot. Just like, you know, it's easy to get down on yourself and be like, oh man, like the world is, you know, going down the toilet and, you know, screw it all, and like, you know, maybe I'm just crazy for thinking about this. But, you know, if you take a more proactive stance on it and try and get yourself out there, whether that be, through just like Facebook, putting out like messages on Facebook. Some people do that. Or, starting up your own websites or YouTube channels, going into the real world off the internet and going to rallies and taking, maybe going even to a city council meeting or something like that, getting involved in politics on a local level. Just starting, just getting engaged in activities, I think, helps a lot if people are feeling down or something like that about the world.
Have you lost any friends? We talk about that every once in a while. But you also too, when you kind of come out and you start talking about this stuff, that people that are very offended or they get I don't know what's the word, they get intimidated or angry, or they think that you're weird and crazy, or they're embarrassed by you. They don't want to have to do anything with you. Have you lost any friends over?
Well, it's what the worst part about that is? It's often like the closest people to you that happens with sometimes,
Yeah.
Because with family members and things like that, because you have such close ties to somebody with some of these controversial issues, it becomes very tough to, if you engage with somebody on a regular basis about things, when you have subjects that you can't talk about, things like that, it can become a stressful situation. So it's tough, and that's why if I do talk about this kind of subjects with people, I try not to get excited about it, because it's very easy for these things on the internet or in real life to become like heated debates, and even easier on the internet because people can throw out little jabs and insults to each other, hiding behind the keyboard.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So, they don't have the balls to do in real life, but they'll they'll put it in your face.
Yeah, get you pissed off just for fun or whatever.
Yeah. Has anybody ever cut you off? Or
cut me off how?
Cut ties with you because of a...
Oh, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, occasionally you see on, Facebook a friend thing go down, but then, the friend thing goes up 10, and you're like, oh, I must be onto something,
Yeah.
I mean, it's stuff that, it happens, but I wouldn't, I'd encourage other people, don't really think about, what other people think about you or whatever like that. If you have confidence in yourself and your ideas and what you're talking about and what you know to be true, then just keep going with that, and just follow that line of reasoning, and keep doing what you're doing, and eventually things will turn out okay. You'll meet other people, and the truth is out there, and the truth will prevail. That's what I think.
Yeah.
It's that's pretty much what I try to keep an optimistic view, even when people have contacted me through email recently saying, "Aren't you scared the FBI is gonna come after you for making these videos and whatnot?" I'm like, it's I try not to be too paranoid about that sort of stuff, and I try and have a more optimistic view and be this is part of a movement that we're all in, and that we're just all trying to get the information out there,
Yeah.
And it's a great thing. It's a great time to be alive, because even though we have these a-holes in charge of the government and everything, we can fight back now. We have the tools necessary to do that.
Yeah.
And I think, we're in a moment of triumph almost.
Yeah. Thank God for the internet.
Yeah.
I always say that.
Yeah, really. They made a big mistake making that available to us.
Well, yeah, definitely. Now, when you did your video on the Illuminati, since we brought up Kennedy and all that, we interviewed Fritz Springmeier a while back, and he was saying that the Kennedys are one of the 13 bloodlines. When you were doing your research, which I find to be interesting, because then if there was also a plot to kill them, it's almost like they don't like each other sometimes. Did you find that in your research, any information about inter-turmoil that they have with each other? Because they don't necessarily all agree and like each other and aren't all on the same page.
Well, I was trying to do some research on this stuff, in 2011, and that was one of the things I was trying to prove, a connection between, let's say, the Rothschild banking families and the original Illuminati group.
Uh-huh.
And I could only find tangential threads that sort of led one to the other. They were in the same neighborhood or the same country at the same time, and certain people were involved in certain similar areas. So Fritz Springmeier and some other researchers have gotten into some things, some subjects like the bloodline aspect that I haven't really, I haven't really found the hard proof or the hard evidence necessary to make an informed opinion on that. And I know Fritz Springmeier has been on a couple of radio shows, and but I took a look at some of his books, and I was looking for like the actual source material that he used to get at this information, and I couldn't, find really where he was getting the real information, so I couldn't, verify it for myself. And that's one of the things I like to do in my research. So that's partially why I haven't really concentrated on that aspect so much, but I do think that there are powerful families out there and that there are power struggles. Like you see it between CNN and Fox almost. Like they're both trying to con you basically, but they're both trying to get, your advertisement money time, your viewership. So there's always going to be little power struggles among the elite companies and families and banks that are out there, things like that, and whether or not they're like related or ninth cousins or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So it's the harder aspect of it to prove. So in your research, you've kind of just focused on sort of the power families, so to speak. Do they call themselves the Illuminati? Like, where does that name come from?
Well, the Illuminati was a real thing. It was the order that was created by this guy, Adam Weishaupt, that was meant to sort of be an add-on to Freemasonry, sort of like an extra secret society. And, there was a real thing called the Illuminati, but that official group or secret society was broken up by the Bavarian government. But that didn't mean that those ideas were killed or that those people were, killed by the government or anything. Those people who started the organization and those ideas eventually led to things like the French Revolution. Some of the thinkers of that time in France were part of the French Masonry. French Masonry was a big thing, the Grand Orient of France. They're the same Masons who gave us the Statue of Liberty. And they're also the ones who added to the English Freemasonry. English Freemasonry was 3 degrees. France got a hold of it and started adding all these extra titles and things like the York Rite, Scottish Rite, all this stuff like that. So France is big as far as secret societies and occults and things like that. It's just one other thing I wanted to mention as far as Alex Jones and the New World Order is concerned, is that in my research, when, Bohemian Grove, the famous cremation of care, the owl ceremony and all that, Alex Jones and a lot of other people have repeated that this thing is Moloch. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, Moloch, this demon or something like that. Well, in my research, it looks to me that it's not this thing called Moloch, but it's actually a symbol of a goddess named Minerva. And if you look at the Illuminati, Minerval is one of their degrees, and Minerva is the goddess of wisdom. And the Minerva, her bird, is the owl. So basically this owl, I think, is a representation of, asking for knowledge or forbidden knowledge, cremating their care for the world by asking for occult knowledge on how to subvert it. So that's one thing that came about out of my research into the Illuminati and some of their degrees and whatnot. I came across this word named Minerval, and then it was like Minerva, and then I saw the owl and all that stuff. That was pretty funny when Anderson Cooper flashed that owl picture, wasn't it?
We're talking with Max Egan, and he was like, of course it's an owl. Of course. Did you hear the Max Egan video? Yeah, we interviewed him like a couple weeks ago, and he was like, of course it's an owl. I wasn't a pony or a puppy dog. Of course, right. Of course it's an owl.
Some owl.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty funny, and he's like showing the picture of it. Which was weird in and of itself. I've never seen them pull out like a child's artwork before.
Yeah, that was pretty good for a 6-year-old.
Yeah. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Anderson Cooper.
Oh, God, I hate that guy.
Oh, he's such a jerk. I call him Anderson Pooper, but she says that that's not harsh enough.
Yeah.
We need a We need a harsher name. He's such an asshole. You can curse on the show too, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's on like satellite radio or something like that.
No, it's on Blog Talk. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Curse.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, we used to take the trouble to bleep, but we don't anymore.
I know. We were thinking about, we were like talking about how we're going to create the show. We're like, we want it family friendly, like Alex Jones, and then to the cursing. And then I think that went out the door like episode 3 when Liam came on.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes, like, I was trying to keep my videos clean and everything, but sometimes you got to say something like, I found this Gene Rosen article about Sandy Hook where I think it was like Salon.com interviewed him or something like that, and he starts cursing in the middle of the article. He's like, did you hear about this, or did you guys read the article?
No.
No? Oh, God, it's the most bizarre thing. I think I did a video on it. I think it's Salon.com that interviews Gene Rosen about conspiracy theorists hounding him. And Gene Rosen tells this weird story about how he was in a local diner and some guys in a car club came up to him and congratulated him on being a hero of Sandy Hook and whatnot. And then he heard somebody behind him say, yeah, I heard it was a conspiracy. So Gene Rosen is relating this story to Salon.com. And he says, I wanted to go up to this guy and tell him how much of like a fucking asshole he is and how much evil shit he's spreading. And like, he starts cursing a blue streak. And I'm like, what the hell? Gene Rosen, the kindly old grandpa guy is like, really like.
These children, I want to hold them and cuddle them.
Yeah. And then when you look at some of the footage, there's some footage of Gene Rosen before he gave all these media interviews. Where he does it's almost like an audition tape. When I did this 1.5-hour long video on Gene Rosen, it's the first video interview that comes up, and in that video he curses. He's like he's on the hood of his car and he's like, how could you fucking kill a child and all this stuff, and it's like, Gene Rosen, like, that's a big red flag.
He's not a character. He broke character.
Yeah, you can almost hear the camera person snicker when he says that.
Yeah, he's a little creepy. Some of the things he said, I think, struck me as a little like, I don't want my kids going to his house.
Yeah, free collective one, your table's ready, basically.
Yeah. The thing that was creepy to me also was not so much like the way he said it, even, but the way that he repeated it the same way in a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
Like that.
And as an actor, you can tell.
Yeah, it's almost like you're running off I know he's repeating the same scenario and everything, but he uses the same wordage a lot. It's like repetitive wordage, and it's almost like you're running off a script of some kind when you say that this woman's face is frozen in fear. When you say that same exact phrase in 15 different interviews, not only in English, but in Spanish as well. He gives some Spanish interviews. Have you seen those?
No,
they're hilarious. He's talking in Spanish to Telemundo and like all these other Spanish TV stations, and he's using the same. He's like, no formiendo, he's like talking in this whiny voice. It's really, you gotta look that up. It's great.
Well, this has been a really good interview, but we are out of time. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful, and we're really glad. We have to look up Gene Rosen and Telemundo because that just sounds classic. I hadn't heard about that yet, but wow, what a great way to end the show. So once again, Brendan, thank you for being on the show, and please tell us what your website and your YouTube channel are. Once again, let our audience know where they can find you.
Sure, and sorry about that whole little phone mix-up earlier,
Oh, no worries. It happens.
Yeah. But it was a pleasure being on your show, and my website is Brendan Hunt, BRENDAN, Hunt.com. That's my name. And I have a YouTube channel at youtube.com/XRayUltra. And if you want to get like a little Facebook news feed or something, I have something at facebook.com/Brendan Hunt website.
All right, great. So yeah, we want everybody to go and check out Brendan's work because he's doing some real good investigative journalism and really well researched, and so that's why we wanted to have him on. So it's been a great pleasure to meet you, and we hope that you come back again sometime. We will We'll be in for a steam. We'll take a short break, and then we get back, we'll go ahead and wrap up the show. But Brendan, thanks so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, thank you, and I'll throw up your website on my little website and throw some links on there as well.
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful. Sounds good.
All right, take care.
Brendan Hunt is primarily known as a New York-based actor, but is also an accomplished musician, artist, independent journalist, activist, author, filmmaker, web designer, and archivist of Esoterica. In 2011, Hunt started his own production company, X-Ray Ultra Studios. He gained YouTube popularity by posting a video giving a thorough alternative analysis of the Sandy Hook school shooting, and has since visited Sandy Hook to do some of his own investigative research. He is here to discuss his findings with us today. Please welcome back to the show, Brendan Hunt. Hey, Brendan, how are you?
Very nice. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Yeah, I'm glad you're alive.
Yeah, I didn't end up like that guy Michael Hastings. So.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And you know, that happened in Los Angeles, like right up the street from my high school. I don't know. I just identified. I just was looking at the video the other day, and I saw it was on the corner of like Highland and Melrose. So I know exactly where that is. That is terrible.
The videos from around there, they have some signs up on the tree saying this is not an accident and everything. So looks like somebody knows what really happened.
Oh, well, I know. I saw a little bit on Alex Jones, and they were talking about like how the engine blew. It was like a block away from the car, and they're like, engines don't do that when they hit trees.
Yeah, and then one of the eyewitnesses, I think he was his native language was Spanish. He was describing how the car was coming down the road and that it was already flaming before it hit the tree. So, you know, there's a couple of fishy things about that, not to mention the fact that he wrote his colleagues and said he was onto a big story, that he has to go into hiding. And it's a real shame because he seemed like a guy out in the media, in the mainstream media, that had a real progressive voice and that was willing to talk about some things and point some fingers at the administration that other pundits aren't willing to talk about.
Yeah, it was really disheartening. He was only not too much, I think he was a little younger than me, like a couple of years, so that was just, I don't know, it was heartbreaking. And the guy, I don't know how to say his name right, Young Turks.
Oh, I don't know how to
what's his name?
Either, but yeah, I know.
I don't know, it's a cool name. Anyway, he was actually friends with him, and I saw him talk about it and give a broadcast, and he just seemed like that must be terrible having to talk about your friend but do your job at the same time, you know.
Yeah.
It was terrible. So anyway, but on that note, I'm glad you are okay.
Yeah, me too.
because so, you know, just before we start, this show's basically we're going to talk about the Boston bombing and Sandy Hook. So as far as false flags go, when did you become aware of false flags? And what were your thoughts on why the government, or what are your thoughts on false flags, basically, and how did you become aware? I'll start there.
Well, I guess I started looking into these sorts of events with the Alex Jones video that I think we talked about last time, that I went over to this street vendor who was selling these DVDs back in like 2004 or 2005. I picked one up, and then I saw this, you know, Texas guy screaming about all this New World Order stuff on these videos, and I was like, what is he talking about? And then I did some research on Google and the Internet and found out that, hey, he was onto something. So then I started looking into things like the 9/11 event. That raised a lot of red flags for me because there's just so much evidence out there that points to something being covered up by the U.S. government and involvement by other agencies around the world. So, you know, that was a big topic for me for a while. And then when Sandy Hook occurred, that was just, for the first few days I wasn't sure what to make of it, but after looking into it, it had the same sorts of conflicting reports going on, and basically a lot of the same red flags that were raised during the 9/11 event. I found similar things with Sandy Hook, and also with a slew of other things that have come out this year alone, like the Santa Monica shooting that occurred, or the Boston bombing thing that happened. There were even some events in Italy that were reminiscent of the strategy of tension they used during the Operation Gladio days, where the new government was being ushered in Italy, and right outside the Parliament building there was a shooting. Nobody got killed, and there is speculation that that was staged in order to, you know, give support for this new government coming in. So, yeah, there's been a whole slew of these incidents this year alone, not to mention all the suspicious deaths that have happened, like we just talked about with Michael Hastings. So I think as time goes by, more and more people are realizing that these types of events are real, that they are possible, and that certain things in the media, when they seem suspicious, that might mean that they are suspicious and that they deserve to be looked into and not just dismissed as conspiracy theory or something like that.
Yeah, because it's obviously been going on a long time. I mean, since before we were born. You know, I've heard, and I'm not a historian really, but I've heard, you know, false flags have been happening. Probably even when Hitler burned the Reichstag building.
Yeah, that was,
you know, but probably even before that. Yeah, you know, and then Pearl Harbor, and so.
Yeah, that's been a time-honored tradition with, you know, overreaching governments to blame an enemy, to rile up some feelings of nationalism within their populace, and to get support for measures that they might not otherwise be able to, you know, execute.
So I'm curious too. So we're talking about Sandy Hook. You made a really thorough video on Sandy Hook a few months ago. Yeah, it was a really thorough analysis. So I'm just curious though, what prompted you to actually go to Sandy Hook? Do you find? I mean, yeah.
Well,
what prompted you to do that?
It happened to be near my house, and it wasn't like something like the Santa Monica shooting where it's just physically impossible for me to get there. And I didn't see anybody else doing it. And after that the long video that I made went sort of viral, I felt like people were looking for more information, and I thought that the best way to do it was actually to just go there and find out, you know, for other people and for myself, what happened, what the scene actually looks like, because basically we just got this thing fed to us through the TV, and I thought maybe just having some boots on the ground from independent reporter, if you will, might give us a little more insight into what actually happened. And I managed to find one of my friends that I met online through this whole Sandy Hook thing, this guy Corey Minto. He drove us both up there, and we discovered some pretty interesting information. We even got to interview this guy named Gene Rosen, who's pretty popular. I even made an hour-and-a-half video just on his statements to the media, and we got to interview him for a little bit. And we also came across some really interesting information that we haven't actually released in video form yet, but I guess it's all right if I talk about it on this. So this will be the first time that I'm releasing this information.
Oh, exclusive news! I'm excited.
A Truth or Talk exclusive. Yes. But while we were there, I remembered a video from having seen on YouTube of this lady named Marilyn Gudsnuck, and she was standing in front of her house, and she was describing the scene that she saw immediately following the shooting, or the sounds of the shooting. She described looking in the direction of the firehouse and seeing Gene Rosen driving his black car, the black car that can be seen in his driveway in some of his interviews. She described him. She didn't describe him actually in the original video. She described a person, an older man, driving his car and looking for his kids, very emphatically looking for his kids. Now, when I saw this interview with her, and I remembered that Gene Rosen has this black car in his driveway in some of the interviews, I'm wondering, you know, to myself, is this the same guy? Is Gene Rosen the guy that she saw there and everything? So when me and Corey got to Sandy Hook, we brought up the little video on our cell phones, and we matched the house that's in the video to the actual house that's in Sandy Hook. And we went up there and we rang the doorbell, and Marilyn Gudsnuck herself wasn't there, but her daughter was, her daughter Jessica. And we started talking to Jessica, and Jessica let us inside her house, and she was talking to us, and Jessica said that her family had only lived there for about 4 to 5 months before the shooting occurred, and that it was just her and her mom taking care of
her grandmother, I think she said her grandma was like 91 or something, and they also had a cat there that looked like a Siamese kind of cat. So we're talking to the daughter, Jessica, and Jessica is giving us some information about what her mother saw, and then all of a sudden she drops the bomb that Gene Rosen was actually the guy that her mother saw driving this black car. Now, when I heard this is like one of the main reasons I even wanted to go up to Sandy Hook in the first place, to try and find out some information on Miss Gudsnuck's story. And when I heard this, it immediately raised some alarms with me, because Gene Rosen has said that he was at his house feeding his cats before the shooting took place, and that he heard 8 shots and then came out and found all these kids on his lawn. But if what Mrs. Gudsnuck, Miss Gudsnuck's daughter, said is true, that means that he was driving around the scene before, or just after the shooting took place, looking for his, quote, kids. Now, that didn't make a lot of sense to me, because it contradicts his story, and plus he doesn't have any kids that go to the school. So it just, raises some alarm bells for me that Mr. Rosen might not be telling us the exact truth in his stories. And we hope to release this information soon. We want to go back up to Sandy Hook to try and get an on-camera statement from Mrs. Gudsnuck. That's the only reason why we haven't released this information yet.
Okay. Very, very interesting. So you actually interviewed Gene Rosen.
Yeah, that was
right. What was that like? I want to know about that.
Oh, okay. Well, righty. Well, when we first got to the town, we stopped by the local bar diner, and we talked to the bartender there and a couple of the locals, and then we went over to Gene Rosen's house after scoping out the firehouse a little bit and looking at the school. And we just walked right up there. We walked up the driveway. We walked around to his front door, I guess, which is actually around the back of his house. And we knocked on the door, and I didn't really knock very hard the first time, so Corey, nudges me. He's like, knock harder, man, knock harder. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I knocked again a little harder, and then out of the shadows, I guess he was sitting down in his couch in the living room, but he looked like he rose up out of the shadows, and it kind of gave me a little scare at first. But Gene Rosen suddenly appears in his, in his darkened living room, and opens the door for us, and I just, tried to talk to him as a regular human being, not throwing him under any suspicion or anything, because we don't know the truth either. But I had hoped to ask him a few more questions, but he seemed kind of reluctant to go on. I'm surprised that he talked as much as he did. But, that was basically it. He just went into it about these truthers that were harassing him and how he didn't want to do any more interviews because of that. And, I could, I suppose, understand that, since he was coming under a lot of scrutiny for his statement.
Yeah.
But, it was pretty interesting to meet the person, and also to see that he is an actual real live person. He actually lives at that house. And because there's some talk on the internet how he was like an actor and things like that, and he may well be. But, it appeared to us that he really actually resides at that house. So that was interesting for us, just to get a glimpse of the real situation there without the media's filter over it. And then we proceeded to go over to the Gudsnuck's house, where we learned this other information that contradicts Gene Rosen's official story.
Wow, I'm surprised he let you guys interview him.
Yeah, well,
actually,
I kind of brought up some credentials that I had from this couple things that I did for WBAI radio, and I think that probably caught his attention, and he figured that I was a reporter from that station. So he gave about 10 or 15 interviews for the media, so he seems to like talking to journalists, and I guess...
Did he talk to you in Spanish?
Yeah, that whole thing. Did you ever get a chance to see that clip?
I did.
Oh, man.
I did.
It's pretty wild.
Well, you know what? Good for you, though. You're still, you're not pointing any fingers. You're just really trying to delve deep and get some real answers. One thing that is kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, I would say maybe alarming, but I would say something like a lot of the people in the quote-unquote truth movement are very quick to point. If something doesn't add up, they're very quick to draw conclusions, and sometimes the conclusions might be right and sometimes they might not be right. Mm-hmm. So there's some people that are unhinged and they kind of take it a little bit further than they take certain situations further than they need to be taken.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, we know something is wrong. We don't know maybe exactly what it is.
Yeah. I mean,
but we know something is up.
Yeah, you'll see all these videos come up on YouTube saying, proof, Boston bombing is a false flag, proof, the hard evidence, and all these things. They might not be like 100% proof like the video claims, but they all do bring up, valid questions and concerns that people have,
Have you been doing research on the Boston bombing too, right? Because you're not far from Boston either. So could you tell me a little bit about that? Tell the official story, and then tell me your findings or your research or your opinion.
Well, I did a similar thing that I did for the Sandy Hook shooting, but I just did it for the Boston bombing thing, and I created a long video. It's actually like 7 hours long, called the Boston bombing cover-up. And if you look on Google or YouTube or something, you could probably pull it up, Boston bombing documentary, 7-hour documentary or something like that. And I begin that video by looking into the plans for a mass casualty event that were laid out by Richard Serino, who was then head of Boston EMS, and back in 2008 when he wrote this report called Tale of Two Cities, and it is a PowerPoint presentation that goes into the planning of a mass casualty event around the Boston Marathon, and it even has a map with the finish line laid out and all that. And Richard Serino was eventually promoted to being director of FEMA by Obama, and that's quite a promotion. I guess somebody really liked his PowerPoint presentation. But I start off with that in the video, and then I go into some of the things that happened on the day of the bombing, like this guy, Ali Stevenson, who came forward. He's the coach of the University of Mobile's cross-country team, and he's running marathons all over the world, like London and D.C. And he came forward right after the bombing occurred and said that he saw bomb drills going on the day of the bombing. At the start line, they had bomb-sniffing dogs there. He said they had spotters on the roofs. And there was apparently active drill occurring. There were people sent over from a New York emergency response team. They were there to help the Boston officials with any kind of casualty event there. And the funny thing is that authorities came forward and said that there was no drill going on. And they poo-pooed anybody who tried to bring it up at these press conferences, like this guy Dan Bidondi from Infowars.com, Alex Jones's network. He was at these press conferences at the Boston bombing, and he kept asking, why do we have pictures of these guys running a drill? What about the drills going on? And they basically ignored his questions or laughed at them, and
give him a Jedi mind trick, basically.
Yeah.
There were no drills here. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's an old trick like that, like move along, folks, nothing to see here, but that's starting not to work anymore, at least I hope, because it right away reveals that there might be something suspicious going on there. If you're like, don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain, then maybe there's something behind that curtain. So that's a big thing that I get into in that lengthy video. I also start talking about the Tsarnaev brothers and how they're connected to U.S. intelligence at the highest levels. Let's see, the guy Tamerlan Tsarnaev, who's the older brother, he was married to a lady named Catherine Russell. Now, Catherine Russell comes from a family who's deeply embedded not only in U.S. intelligence, but also in the Skull and Bones secret society. Her grandfather was, what's his name, Warren Russell, I believe. Richard Warren Russell is her grandfather, and he worked for U.S. counterintelligence during the 50s. He was also a confirmed Skull and Bones member, and so she's the granddaughter of him, and she's married to the bomber. Now, she has an interesting story where it's said that she gave up all this posh lifestyle to live with Chechen immigrant who was strict Muslim. and that doesn't really jive with, you know, where her background is. And also, we know that Tamerlan Tsarnaev's uncle, this guy Uncle Ruslan, who is all over the media, he has connections to CIA as well. He was married to the daughter of Graham Fuller. Now, Graham Fuller is a high-level CIA agent who is one of the minds behind using radicalized Islamists to fight against the Russians back during the Cold War. Graham Fuller's address was also used by Ruslan. Ruslan Sarny is his name. He changed his last name from Tsarnaev to Sarny. So Ruslan Sarny, this guy Fuller's son-in-law, was using Fuller's address to run a operation called Congress of Chechnya. I believe that's the name of it. I get into the exact specifics of everything in the video. I'm just trying to remember it off the top of my head right now. But basically, Uncle Ruslan was running this operation to fund terrorists in Chechnya who were fighting against Russia. And this is another example of the U.S. using an area that has radicalized people, if you will, to fight a proxy war against a country that they don't really particularly like, in this case, Russia. So,
do you think that one of the agendas of the Boston bombing is to try to get people to slowly turn against Russia?
I'm not sure. I don't know what the real motive behind that was. Maybe it has one motive. Maybe it has a range of motives. Attention thing. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, usually, I guess with false flag too, they usually have more than one motive because it takes a lot of planning, and they usually try to kill more than two birds with one stone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even exactly clear on why it happened or who did it, because there's theories going around that these Tsarnaev brothers really did put the bombs there. There are theories going around that they were like photoshopped into these photos. You know, I'm not really sure. I'm just trying to look for the facts in this case, and it appears that the older brother did have connections to U.S. intelligence. It appears that his uncle was connected to U.S. intelligence, and perhaps, this is my best guess maybe, but perhaps this guy Tamerlan thought that he was working in some kind of drill or some kind of CIA drill or something, because he may have been, in fact, working with the CIA. He went over to Russia, over in Dagestan, where he's from, near Chechnya, and he went to these congresses over there where the U.S. is saying that he got radicalized. But these congresses were set up by institutions such as the Jamestown Foundation or George Soros' Open Society Institute. And, you know, there's a theory out there that this guy, Tamerlan Tsarnaev, may have been working undercover for the CIA as a recruiter for radicalized people to fight against, you know, Russia and Chechnya, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it can go so many directions with all of these false flags, you know. You don't really know. Do you think the real reason will ever come out?
I think that there is some possibility. You know, in this particular case, I'm glad that the younger brother survived so that we at least, you know, have somebody to ask questions to and get a different side of the story rather than just relying on the FBI or the CIA.
Yeah. But they're so honest.
Yeah. I mean,
they're probably listening to us right now.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. How you doing, NSA?
Hey, what's up, guys? We're just saying hi, you know. Hey.
I feel honored if they were tapping us. You know?
Yeah, well, supposedly they're tapping all of us, no matter what we do.
Yeah,
so.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty crazy thing to also have come out in the news with this whole Edward Snowden revelation.
Yeah, well, what is your opinion on that? Move on to that. What is your opinion on the Edward Snowden? There's another guy that came out. His name was there were a couple of other people. I was looking. It was Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden is recent, but there was another guy. His name is, I can't think of his name. Give me a minute.
Is it an older guy, like bald?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
His name is I can't think right now. It's driving me crazy. But basically, Thomas Drake.
Okay.
That was Thomas Drake, and there was another guy too, William Binney. I think.
That's the guy I was thinking of, Binney.
William Binney. Mm-hmm. But there's another guy. I was looking at an interview, and I'm actually I'll put it in the lesson and the show notes. If you go to the website, truthertalk.com, you can look in the show notes, and I'll put the interview of Thomas Drake. But basically, he's come under fire, or he was sued by the government under the Espionage Act.
Okay.
And, yeah, because these people that are coming out and talking about the NSA, spying on American citizens are accused of being spies, basically, or betraying the country for telling secrets. But his Thomas Drake's point of view was like, well, no, they're violating the Constitution. So actually, he was able to get off. He had to plead to like a minor misdemeanor, something really petty. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Like using the computer while at work or something like that. But they weren't able to, as far as I know, the last interview I had, they were able to persecute him. But now they're talking about trying to get Edward Snowden, because I think he's living in Hong Kong. They're trying to get China to, basically turn him over to the U.S.
Well,
and
he just got flown out, actually. He landed in Moscow this morning.
Oh, wow. Okay. So he's seeking asylum in Moscow?
I think they sent him to Moscow. He may be looking for asylum in a third country. But I know that he's in Moscow right now.
That's terrible. That's fucking terrible. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, they're chasing
it just makes me so angry. Huh?
They're chasing these people all over the globe.
Yeah, but it's like the government are the spies and the Nazis. The people that are doing this are the Nazis. So it's like the people that are actually coming out and sticking up are being the ones that are being persecuted. It fucking sucks.
And let's not forget Bradley Manning either. He's in jail. He's been in jail over 1,000 days. He just started to get a trial, and it's for the same type of thing, leaking secrets,
God.
But these secrets are damaging to America. Americans need to know about these things that are getting leaked out. There's a reason why they're getting leaked out. It's to let us know what our government is doing behind our backs and in our name. And we, I think it's a necessary thing, these leakers coming forward and these whistleblowers, and I think it's really despicable that the Obama administration has really chased after them and tried to prosecute them to the utmost extent of the law. And not celebrating these guys as the heroes that they actually are.
Yeah, definitely. I saw 1984 for the first time a couple of days ago, and I'm like, damn, we're not even going there. We're here.
Yeah.
We are. Day is 1984.
I saw an article about that, like how book sales of 1984 skyrocketed or something recently because of this NSA thing coming out. So that's a good thing, in my opinion. I think that should be required reading for, elementary school or something. That 1984 book, just as a warning for people. This is why you got to pay attention to what's going on in politics. You can't just let it go on in the background and be consumed with bread and circus issues.
Yeah, I just don't think that a lot of people are in denial of it, and a lot of people, especially from my experience, if you're not traveling outside the U.S., if you're not talking to other people of other countries, you don't really see it maybe going on as much, or seeing things that our country is doing, because we're like brainwashed, to believe that we're the good guys. And, I think we are good guys. It's just the shadow government. It's a small amount of people who are manipulating and doing things and causing wars and pitting people against each other. Really, it's not the people. It's never the people. I always try to talk about
war. Either they're led into it, deceived by their government, or they're forced into it by a government that has ulterior motives. Because I'm pretty sure that most people want to live a normal life, have a peaceful existence, and I'm sure if you went over to the Middle East, a lot of people over there might have nothing against Americans ourselves, but the American government is another thing, and I think they're capable of separating the two.
Yeah. Some are, some aren't, but I don't know how I would be able to distinguish if somebody came and blew up my house and killed my family. I don't know how sane I'd be.
Yeah.
I think I just want to just take somebody down. I don't blame those people. Mm-hmm. The people, for doing that. Do you think more people are becoming aware of false flags?
I think it's starting to leak out into the public consciousness. I think Facebook has helped a lot with that because you can go on there just to look at, silly pictures of somebody's cat, but then occasionally something will pop up in your news feed that might, smack you up beside the head and say, hey, this is really going on. So I think that's actually helped a little bit. And I think people are starting to see, especially with the slew of scandals that have come out about the Obama administration.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people may have been, at least from my experience, I thought a lot of people were in denial about Obama, especially around the time of the election, saying that he's the lesser of two evils, that we have to vote for him instead of Romney and all that.
Oh, wait, is this the first election or the second election?
The election that just occurred last year.
Okay.
I saw a lot of people, giving Obama a pass on all the drone bombings and everything like that, because he was seen as the better alternative as opposed to Romney. But I think the larger point that people really have to understand is that Obama and Romney, they're both playing for the same team. And they're going to both enact the same types of policies, just like Obama continued Bush's disastrous presidency and those policies. Romney's going to do the same thing. All these guys that are up there for the big job, the president of the United States, at least the people who get to the final election round, those people are usually chosen by the power structure, and they sort of rig the game, like it was with Bush and Kerry. Bush and Kerry back in 2004 were both running for the presidency, and they were both part of the same secret society of Yale, that Skull and Bones thing. So it's like you can see that these guys are all playing on the same team, and that voting for the guy on the left hand or the guy on the right hand isn't really going to change policy to a substantial degree. The only guy that I saw up there last election that I thought had any kind of real head on his shoulders was Ron Paul, and he got kind of cheated out of the whole.
Because because he's not playing for the team. He has his own team. He came with his own game,
Yeah, I mean, I might not agree with Ron Paul on everything, like as far as domestic policy is concerned, but he had his head in the right direction. He was talking about anti-war. He was talking about states' rights. He was talking about getting us sound money. And those are the type of the things that, the establishment isn't too keen on, and why they went for Romney instead of a guy like Ron Paul. Like Romney was more of a safe bet for Republicans because he was the guy who, was uber conservative and all that stuff, and who would push the agenda. Whereas Ron Paul, he's not going to do what the elites want. He was a thorn in their side, and that's why they had to cheat to get him out of the primary process, to get his delegates out of there. Just because I think some people know an illusion or a charade when they see one. And to a lot of Republicans, I think they saw Romney as the person who he is, which is basically another one of these elites who don't have a head of their own. They're just a puppet for a larger organization. And I think a lot of Republicans and conservatives, especially in the libertarian movement, saw Ron Paul was talking the truth, and they tried to rally behind him, but unfortunately the establishment is just too powerful, and they got basically screwed.
Do you think that do you think the thing that's going to fix this country is going to be another leader? Do you think that we put our faith too much and relying on one person to fix our problems instead of taking responsibility for ourselves?
Well, I think that brings up a really good point in that it's not the leaders who are necessarily going to change things, it's the people who are going to change things. The people have to start electing and putting forward good representatives. People have to start taking a more active involvement in politics, and some of these topics that might not be as exciting as whether the Kardashians are pregnant, but are more vital who are existing.
Yeah.
And, part of me also kind of realizes that the mass awakening that I think we're all hoping for might not actually happen. I don't think all of America is going to wake up to the corruption that's going on, because they haven't already, and it's been in our faces for years. But I think that the people who are awake to what's going on, and the people who do have that drive to change things, if we can organize, get more proactive, and put forward people who we want to see in government, then I think we can change things. And it's not just about electing one person to the presidency. It's also about getting responsible people into Congress and the Senate. I mean, and it doesn't take that much to do it. We saw with the Tea Party, even though I might not, agree with all their platforms, but the Tea Party was able, through a sort of grassroots movement, to be able to put a lot of people into Congress and to affect change that way, even though they didn't win the presidency. And that's an example of the kind of power that we need to get back into government. We need to put our own people there who are responsible to their constituencies and who are going to uphold what the people of America want instead of what the corporations of America want.
Yeah. I think about that too, because, sometimes I'm hopeful, and then there are just some days I'm like, oh, God. Wake up, like nobody's waking up, I mean,
it's a slow struggle. I think that, we're winning, but as far as the masses waking up, I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, you know what? I think I would like to think that we are winning, but I think that, like you said, I think a lot of people think winning means that everybody's just going to wake up and be enlightened and be free. And I'm coming to the point where there are just some people that don't want to wake up. It's better for them. They feel it's easier for them to be a slave because people don't want to take responsibility. And with those people, I just don't waste my time anymore. And, sometimes it's painful for me because it's people in your family, it's people that you love, but, you try, maybe you can plant some seeds, and sometimes they'll wake up, and that's happened. I definitely have been a case where people have tried to tell me things, when I was younger, and I just didn't get it, or was zombified, or whatever you want to call it, and now I'm awake. So I think that people are going to wake, and then there's some people that are going to wake up on their own time. Mm-hmm. That are going to wake up. But I think there's the amount of people that runs things are so small that there are either more people that are more people than them that are already waking up, or about the same, I would say.
Yeah.
So anybody else in the middle is left up for grabs. That's how I like to think of it. So some are going to either go the other way too and support the elite or whoever you would say is running things, and then some people are going to wake up and join our side. So. And
there's also a third category of people, I guess, people who are already awake but are still lying in bed and not doing anything. And I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what? I just feel that too. There are people that they don't know what to do, and they don't know what to do, and they don't know, or they feel helpless. Or they rely on a lot of the power that the things that they have, I guess the elite have against us. I was talking the other day to this guy, and he was like, "Oh my God, they have drones, and they have robots, and they have all of these biological diseases, and they have nuclear bombs, and they have HAARP, and they have what else do they have? I don't know. They have all this shit, which I'm sure they do." I haven't seen it myself. Mm-hmm. I don't discount that. I don't think he's crazy for saying that. And I've seen some testimonies and videos and stuff that certainly seemed legit to me. But really, are they going to release everything at the same time? Just because they have all these things doesn't mean that they're going to come to pass or they're going to use them. And B, we must be very powerful if they feel that they need to have all of this stuff to shut us down. We must be really powerful. I'm sorry. I think I said they must be, but we must be. Sure.
So they're scared. Only people that live in fear do stuff like that, want to control people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're trying to strip away our rights little by little and tear up the Constitution little by little so that they can have, unfettered access to all of our information, or that they can roll out, a drone program that just, covers our skies. And right now we're sort of protected by the Bill of Rights and things like that, even though they've been, shredded and tattered already by all the corruption that's gone on in the past decade or so. But, we're still sort of protected by those basic freedoms and those basic expectations of what the United States represents. But as soon as they strip away some of these real vital ones, in my opinion, I know there's this whole debate on the gun issue, but I really don't think they if they passed a gun ban and they like went door to door like collecting guns and stuff like that, that would lead to a real
civil war,
real shit show. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna. They're not gonna.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna get away with that.
Yeah.
And if they start doing that, it's, like you said, it's gonna be a shit show. A shit show is what you said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go on.
Well, the only reason why I think they would even attempt to do something like that would be, if they have stripped us away, if they've stripped our rights away so far that we can't really fight back against that kind of crackdown. And, the other scenario that I could see them confiscating our weapons like that is just to incite some kind of riot like that, or incite some kind of civil disturbance, which creates an even further justification for their crackdown.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, definitely. It's easier said than done, but really all we have to do is withdraw our consent to any of this stuff. And the really way that they have us empowered is just keeping us ignorant and keeping us in fear. Yeah. If people knew about the Constitution, if they knew about laws, if the policemen actually protected the people instead of turned against them, if we saw how we're being pitted against each other as countries, as people within a country, as races, as everything, then game over for them.
Yeah.
Like if there would be no war if nobody showed up. I mean, of course, it's easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, that's the real dilemma. Like, would people wake up if it was like if a news report came out tomorrow and said that we have irrefutable proof that the Obama administration and the Bush administration have been doing these false flag events or something like that, and they laid it out A, B, C. Here you go. Here's the evidence. Irrefutable. Would people wake up then? Or would they
no, I don't think some will, some won't.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people need to have somebody come up to make them think about stuff like that. Like the thing about Edward Snowden is, like with us, we're like, wow, big wow. We're not surprised.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, really? It's, yeah, totally. But there are people that need it to. There are people that want to see concrete proof or something before they make a decision like that. And I'm sure now that he's come out, that there's some more people that probably have woken up, and there's some people that are still in denial. I mean, there's always going to people are going to believe what they believe and find meaning or attach meaning to whatever they want to attach meaning to. But the thing is, you got to do you, and you got to, if you're doing a great thing by doing your reporting, making your videos and stuff, it's really great. Also, I like to see other videos that people are making on YouTube, even if it's just some dude posting their opinion. I think it's really helpful for us to know that we're not alone.
Yeah.
And because it can get really lonely at times. I feel sometimes you feel like you're like a bad apple in a bunch of, I don't know, I can't think of a good metaphor right now, but you feel like you're a lonesome dove. I'm fresh out of metaphors. I feel fresh out of metaphors right now. But you feel you're a little lonely sometimes, and you get sick of arguing with people, and you watch TV. I haven't really watched TV in years, but I go over to my mom's house and I just see her just like mesmerized in front of the TV, and then like every other commercial is like a commercial for drugs or some stupid petty shit that they're telling you that you need to buy that you don't even need, or some TV show that's brainwashing people about terrorists, and it's just all fake and phony. And when you're awake, it's like you can't go back. When you take the red pill, you can't like do anything else to go back. So you see all this stuff, and then you try and argue with people, or try and tell them, and they call you crazy or they mock you, and it's a harder life but a better life, because when or if the shit does hit the fan, I don't think I'll be flipping out, as opposed to people who are uninformed or unconscious or unaware. I think it would be harder for them. Yeah. But I guess. I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, and then everybody's going to come to you and be like, Verstine, you called this. Like, what do we do now?
Well, no, I don't think, but then that's a hard burden to bear, too, because you have all these people that are expecting you to do something, Well, there's one more question, though. I just want to ask, because I also feel, I know you're an artist. So do you think, and I as well as I am, as Liam is too, I'm sorry, we lost Liam. He's having internet connection, issues. But so you're an artist, Liam's an artist, April's an artist, I'm an artist. Do you think that artists tend to be generally more aware of the status quo and more conscious of underlying malevolent agendas today than people who aren't creative are?
That's a tough question. But I think that...
hold on. Yeah? Artists, not people that are obsessed with celebrity.
Sure.
There's a difference, you know what I mean? Like, yes.
Well, I think that it's good for artists to be politically conscious and to let that infuse their work, whether it be, an overt political message like somebody like Rage Against the Machine, or whether it be a little more subtler and have it just influence some of the topics that you write about or paint about. I think it's good to have that political conscious. It's good for anybody, whether you're creative or not. I think, the next step to take, and not just for creative people, but also for just people who are interested in politics or just everyday people. The next step is to start organizing and to start building coalitions between people so that you don't have that lonesome dove thing where you're a voice crying in the wilderness.
Yeah.
You're just a group of like-minded individuals who can mobilize and affect change. Because it's really hard to affect change if you're just one person, trying to tell everybody that they're walking the wrong direction and people just stubbornly go ahead. But if you can get together with, even like 4 or 5 like-minded individuals and tell people, okay, you're going in the wrong direction, we got to go this way. It helps strengthen your point of view, and it also helps you get a clearer understanding of the world. And the other point that I just wanted to throw in there is also, as conscious as we are of the political realm and the geopolitical realm, I think it's also good to be conscious of what's going on in your own body, because if
definitely,
then you can affect change even better. If you have a healthy mind and a healthy body,
definitely,
there's no stopping you. So that's one of the things that I'm concentrating on right now. I was a cigarette smoker for a while. I kind of out of shape for a little bit, but now I'm trying to exercise almost religiously, cut out the cigarettes, and I feel like that's going to put me on a path to affecting change just as much as getting informed about world events.
Oh, definitely. Well, first of all, what I want to say to that is that we do a lot of shows on health too. Mm-hmm. It's so funny though. We interviewed a lady called the Patriot Nurse, and she's like a prepper, and she's a really, really fascinating person. Prepper. She's also a nurse and is into health, and she's also holds classes on gun safety and stuff. But she did this video. It's very straightforward, but you know what? And I think a lot of people probably got offended by it, but I think it's very true. But she did this video called, I think, the people that are going to die first when the shit hits the fan. And she breaks it down. She's like, okay, the drug addicts, the people that have autoimmune disorders, the people that are overweight, and this is why. And she's very, very true. But that's another way too that they're using us to dumb us down. If you have you can't fight the New World Order, so to speak, if you have one leg or cancer, or you know what I mean, or
if you're pumped up, or even with weed, like a pothead guy, a guy in a trance is in no position to take a stance.
Yeah, definitely. You have to. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'm all for legalization and everything. I'm all about legalize it. But I'm just saying, even with drinking, if they keep you addicted to alcohol, then there's no way that you're going to be able to stand up to some of the corruption that's going on.
Oh, definitely. Plus, I think, I don't know how you are, and I know that there are a lot of people that are atheists in this movement, and I'm not, downing them, but for me, I feel like it's, at the end of the day, it's like a spiritual battle, a mental battle, too. Sure. So if you don't have if you're not strong in your spirit and strong in your, your psyche, then you are also easily corrupted.
Yeah, and if you have that trifecta going on of, body, mind, and spirit, that puts you on a firm foundation. for success.
Oh, definitely. And and I think also to be honest and speak about what you feel, and it takes a strong person. So you're already there already, but to take that to the next level and become physically healthy and have mental clarity makes you even stronger and makes you an even larger adversary for the people that we're fighting against.
Oh yeah. So. They're scared of an informed guy who, might be like putting out the message. But if you're like, an informed person who's also getting out there on the streets and not just posting things on Facebook, but if you're also getting out there on the streets, showing people not just what's going on in government, but also a healthier way to live, how to grow your own vegetable garden and things like that, that's even more of a threat to the establishment. So,
definitely.
Let's all get out there and, start doing positive things in the real world.
Okay, on that note, it was really great talking to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Brendan, please plug your website or anything else you want to plug before we wrap up the show.
Sure. If you want to hear more from me, I got a website at brendanhunt.com. That's BRENDAN hunt.com. And I also have a Facebook page where I post some news updates and stuff at facebook.com/xrayultra.
Okay, cool. Okay, guys, we'll be back with the